The Ghost of You. Written and copyright by A. A. Castor. Welcome everyone to A. A. Castor Book Club. Today's story is The Ghost of You. Prepare yourselves for a heart-wrenching exploration of love and loss, where the lingering memories of a soulmate drive one man to the edge of despair. Brace for a tale that delves deep into the anguish of grief, the haunting power of memories, and the ultimate, tragic escape from unbearable pain. Chapter 1. The Empty House. James stood at the doorway of his empty house, the silence pressing in on him like a suffocating shroud. Every corner of the home held memories of Emma, his soulmate, who had passed away 6 months ago. The house, once filled with laughter and love, now felt like a hollow shell, echoing with the absence of the woman who had been his everything. He walked slowly through the living room, his fingers trailing along the back of the couch where they used to sit together, watching movies and sharing quiet moments. The faint scent of her perfume still lingered in the air, a painful reminder of what he had lost. He paused by the mantel, where a photo of them on their wedding day stood proudly. In the picture, Emma's eyes sparkled with joy, and James felt a sharp pang in his chest. "I miss you so much," he whispered, his voice cracking. "I don't know how to do this without you." The dining room table, now covered in dust, was where they used to share their meals. James could almost see Emma sitting there, laughing at one of his jokes. He reached out to touch her chair, feeling the cold wood beneath his fingers, a stark contrast to the warmth that once filled the room. The bedroom was the hardest. The bed, where they had spent countless nights wrapped in each other's arms, now felt like a cold, empty void. James sat on the edge of the bed, clutching one of Emma's pillows to his chest. Her scent still lingered, and he buried his face in it, tears streaming down his cheeks. Chapter 2. The Haunting Memories. Everywhere James went, he was haunted by memories of Emma. The kitchen, where they used to cook together, now seemed like a mockery of happier times. He remembered her laughter as she danced around, teasing him about his terrible cooking skills. He could almost hear her voice, so real that it made him turn around, expecting to see her standing there. James found himself talking to Emma, even though he knew she was gone. "Do you remember that time we tried to make soufflé?" he said aloud, his voice echoing in the empty room. "It collapsed and we ended up ordering pizza. You laughed so hard." His words trailed off as tears filled his eyes. He clutched the kitchen counter, his knuckles white with the effort to hold back his sobs. "Why did you have to leave me?" he cried, his voice breaking. "I can't do this alone, Emma. I need you." In the garden, he saw the flowers Emma had planted, now wilting without her care. He remembered how she would spend hours tending to them, her face lighting up with joy at each new bloom. He knelt by the flower bed, running his fingers through the soil, feeling the emptiness in his heart mirrored in the lifeless garden. Chapter 3. The Unbearable Loneliness. James' friends and family tried to support him, but he pushed them away. They couldn't understand the depth of his pain. They didn't know what it was like to lose the person who was his entire world. His days were filled with a crushing sense of loneliness, and his nights were even worse. He would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying memories of Emma over and over in his mind. The way she smiled, the sound of her voice, the feel of her touch. The emptiness of the bed beside him was a constant reminder of her absence. One night, unable to bear it any longer, James reached for his phone and called Emma's voicemail. Hearing her voice, even if it was just a recording, brought him a small measure of comfort. "Hi, it's Emma. I can't come to the phone right now, but leave a message, and I'll get back to you." "Emma," James said, his voice trembling. "It's me. I miss you so much. I don't know how to keep going without you. Everything feels so empty." He began to avoid their favorite places, unable to face the memories they held. The park where they had their first date, the cafe where they spent lazy Sunday mornings, the beach where they watched countless sunsets together. Each place was a dagger to his heart, a reminder of what he had lost. Chapter 4. The Desperate Plea. James started to visit Emma's grave almost every day. It was the only place where he felt close to her. He would sit by her headstone for hours, talking to her, sharing his thoughts and feelings, even though he knew she couldn't hear him. "Emma, I feel so lost without you," he confessed one afternoon, tears streaming down his face. "I don't know how to move on. I don't want to move on. I just want you back." The weight of his grief was overwhelming, and he felt like he was drowning in it. He couldn't eat, he couldn't sleep, and he couldn't find any joy in the things that used to make him happy. His friends grew increasingly worried, but he refused to let them in. "James, you need to talk to someone," his friend David urged him during one of their rare conversations. "You can't keep going like this. Emma wouldn't want you to suffer." "I don't care what Emma would want," James snapped, his voice filled with anger and pain. "She's gone, and nothing can change that." As he sat by Emma's grave, he would sometimes bring her favorite flowers, arranging them carefully. "I brought you lilies today," he said softly. "You always loved lilies." The sight of the flowers, vibrant and full of life, only made the ache in his heart grow stronger. Chapter 5: The Final Decision. As the months dragged on, James' despair deepened. He began to feel that life without Emma was unbearable, and he couldn't see a way forward. One evening, as he sat in their living room, surrounded by memories of happier times, he made a decision. "I can't do this anymore," he whispered to himself. "I can't keep living in this pain." He wrote a letter to his family and friends, explaining his decision and apologizing for the pain he knew it would cause them. "I love you all, but I can't go on without Emma. She was my everything, and without her, life has no meaning. Please understand that this is my choice." James gathered some of Emma's belongings, her favorite scarf, a photo album of their happiest moments, and a letter she had written to him on their first anniversary. He took these items with him to the place where he felt closest to her, their favorite spot by the lake, where they had spent countless afternoons together. Chapter 6: The End. The night was cold and quiet as James stood by the water, the moon casting a pale glow on the surface. He spread out a blanket and laid down Emma's scarf and photo album, placing her letter on top. He sat down and read the letter one last time, his tears falling onto the paper. "My dearest James," the letter began, "you are the love of my life, and I am so grateful for every moment we shared. No matter what happens, know that I will always be with you, in your heart and in your memories. I love you more than words can express." James felt a bittersweet comfort in her words. "I love you too, Emma," he whispered, looking up at the stars. "And I'm coming to be with you." He took a deep breath and walked into the lake, the cold water enveloping him. As he moved deeper, the weight of his grief seemed to lift, replaced by a sense of peace. He closed his eyes, imagining Emma's arms around him, holding him close. As the water closed over his head, James felt a final, fleeting sense of relief. He was finally free from the pain, and in his last moments, he believed he would be reunited with the woman he loved more than anything in the world. The next morning, his body was found by a passerby. The news of his death shocked the community, and those who knew him were left to grapple with the devastating loss. His family and friends gathered to mourn, their hearts heavy with sorrow. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. If you enjoyed the story and would like to hear more, please share this podcast with your friends and rate it on your favorite podcast platform. Don't forget to visit my website at www.tonyc.info for more content, updates, and exclusive behind-the-scenes insights. This podcast is mainly supported by listeners like you. If you want to help keep the stories coming, consider supporting me on Patreon at www.patreon.com/JTAC. Even just $1 a month makes a huge difference and helps me continue to create the content you love. Thank you again for listening. Your support means the world to me. Until next time, stay safe and keep exploring the unknown.